I call the meeting of April 25th, 2017 of the Portsmouth City Council to order. We will have an invocation by Dr. Robert Earls of St. John's Baptist Church here in Portsmouth. I'll ask my colleagues on council to stand. I invite anybody that wants to stand also to do so, but after the invocation, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Then I'll ask everybody to stand. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Does a 5 minutes means I have 5 minutes to pray?
Unlimited time for you.
Let us talk to our Heavenly Father. Eternal God, we bow before you at this time to thank you for your mercy, your grace, your Son, and the presence of the Holy Spirit in our lives. We thank you for this great city that we call home. And Father, and as you've been with us throughout all the years, we're reminded that we are still one nation under God, regardless of the challenges and obstacles that lie ahead of us. I pray, dear God, for wisdom for this council. And Father, Lord, you will bless them and anoint them afresh. We thank you for the citizens of this great city. And Lord, we pray, dear God, as they conduct the business at hand, that Father, we continue to be mindful, dear Father, of your instructions, that the commandment that you gave us, that we love one another. I pray, dear God, Lord, as you bless our youth, Father, who are learning by our example, that, Father, we be sterling examples to them, Father, because one day, the Lord, they will be replacing us in conducting the business at hand. Thank you for all that you've done for the city of Portsmouth. Thank you for all that you are doing right now. Thank you for all that you're going to do in the future. And, Father, we continue to give you the glory and honor because we ask these requests in the only name that really matters, the name of your precious Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Now, if everybody would stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next, we'll have electronic roll call. Please indicate your presence by voting yes. And Madam Clerk, we have a quorum.
Yes, sir.
Next, we have the approval of the minutes, and we have 3 sets of minutes. We have a call meeting of April the 10th, 2017. That's a meeting. A call meeting on April the 11th, 2017, and minutes of a regular meeting on April the 11th, 2017. In order to get this before us, is there a motion to approve?
Move adoption.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by voting yes electronically. Thank you. Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Madam Clerk, would you read the protocol for citizens who desire to speak?
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, City Council rules require a limit of up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 5 minutes, you will see a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of 5 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your comments at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. A speaker who fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his or her comments.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir.
This brings us to public hearings. We have 4 public hearings tonight. We'll take them one at a time. I'll open the public hearing, and I'll close the public hearing. I'll invite anybody that desires to speak to come to the lectern. You will have 5 minutes. We ask that you give your name and your address, please, for the record. And if you have signed up to speak at a public hearing, that's okay too. I'll recognize people as they approach the lectern. Our first public hearing is item 1783, which is a public hearing to solicit citizens' comments on the annual action plan. And Madam Clerk, was this public hearing properly advertised?
Yes, sir, it was.
Okay. With that, I'll open the public hearing. Any person desiring to speak to the matter of the annual action plan, I invite you to come to the lectern. Anybody desiring to speak on this matter at this public hearing? Madam Clerk, do you have? Hold on a sec. So that everybody knows what just happened, the city clerk pointed out that we do have registered speakers who have registered to speak on this item at this public hearing. And there are three. Tanya Williams, the public hearing is still open, and I invite you to come to the lectern, please. Tanya Williams. Yes, ma'am, you have 5 minutes, and this is a public hearing.
I'm here to speak on the budget, the next item.
Ma'am?
I'm here to speak on the budget, the next item. not
The next item?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. The next one is Reverend Dr. Ernest Simmons. And this is the public hearing on the annual action plan.
All of us will be speaking on the next item, Mayor Brown.
Okay, thank you. The next is Reverend Dr. Reginald Woodhouse. And this is the annual action plan. I think.
I'm back again.
I don't think
We'll all be speaking. Those people, all three of us will be speaking on the next item, Mayor
Okay.
Brown. Thank you.
Just to make sure that we're abundantly informed, I'm going to pause the public hearing and ask the city manager to tell everybody what the annual action plan is.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Council, the annual action plan is a requirement for the city to submit a proposed budget for the CDBG funds and home funds that are funds that support not only projects that impact Parks and Recreation, Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing Authority, other organizations that submit proposals for consideration for the annual action plan to be approved by City Council. This year's annual action plan totals an amount of about $1.4 million, and it is required by the federal government to host a public hearing before the programs and the proposal can be submitted to the federal government HUD by the May 15th date.
Thank you, ma'am. To reiterate what Dr. Patton said, this is a public hearing on the city's planned use of the community development block grant funds and the home funds that the city gets from the federal agency, the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Madam Clerk. Is there anybody that wants to speak at this public hearing on the city's, yes, ma'am, please come to the lectern. You have 5 minutes. We welcome all comments. And ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
My name is Donna and I live in the Woodbine Farms. What I just want to talk about is not really to say anything except that the regional government has a program that deals with this community block grant program and the home program. And I know there was a meeting one time there that Jeffrey Clymer was there and had something to do with Portsmouth. And that's what my concern is the confusion that the regional government has this program and then the city has it. So that's just why I'm making a statement. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Again, this is a public hearing on the city's annual action plan for the planned use of federal funds for the next fiscal year. Any other speakers? Any person desiring to speak? All right, seeing none, I declare this public hearing closed. Our next public hearing is actually 3 under agenda item 1784, and the first of the 3 is a public hearing to consider the annual operating budget for the fiscal year that starts July 1, 2017 and ends June 30th, 2018. And I now open the public hearing for anybody that wants to speak on the operating budget. And there are people who have signed up to speak, and I'll call them so we can break the ice. Pamela Coppell, if you're present, if you'll come to the lectern, ma'am, you've got 5 minutes.
Good evening. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, and City Manager. My name is Pam Clopell, and I live at 501 Elizabeth Place. I am president of People for Portsmouth, and I am representing them tonight. People for Portsmouth is a local political action committee, and we distributed a survey designed to elicit opinions of the proposed 2018 budget. In the scant 3 days the survey was online, we had 224 people to complete the survey. I would like to share the results of our survey with you now. Our respondents identified full funding for first responders, economic development, and infrastructure improvement as their highest priorities. Therefore, we applaud the budget's emphasis on increased salaries for police and firefighters and its planned recruitment efforts to fill vacancies. We support the $730,000 allocated for the development of Portside. We applaud also, though it's not in the budget, the rewriting of regulations to encourage business development in our city. As our mayor said in one interview, we're going to blow it up, and we are delighted. We also approve funding to replace the Churchland Bridge and repair the seawall. But we thought that these items were included in this year's budget. We hope that this is new money to extend improvements, not the same money moved into another calendar year. Respondents, by more than 63%, do not want any more money spent on the Pines Sports Complex. And maybe this should have gone in the previous public hearing. Therefore, we oppose spending $902,906 in CDBG funds on the Pines in the 2018 budget. Since 2012-13, the city has spent over $7 million on this property. It's still locked up and not listed as a recreation center on the city website. People for Portsmouth's recommendations is that the Pines be sold and returned to the tax rolls. Businesses which service the Naval Shipyard should be recruited to purchase this property. A second recommendation is to move all city services here. 64% of our respondents believe that recreation dollars should be spent to implement programs and centers at schools where neighborhoods do not have recreation centers. This is an opinion similar, but not exactly identical to, the recommendation made by a consultant in 2012, who was paid $65,000 to develop a Parks and Recreation master plan. Quote, although constructing a new centrally located state-of-the-art recreation center may be an ideal goal, maintenance of existing facilities should be the priority. But a second priority should be filling in the gaps in areas that need coverage. 71% of our respondents said there should be fees for use of these recreational centers. We need to pay for what we use. 58% of our survey takers believe city employees should not receive both the 2.5 wage increase as well as the $500 retention bonus. Instead, this $500 bonus of about $1 million should be used on infrastructure or should be given to the schools so school staff can receive the same 2.5 wage increase as city employees. 67% responded that what was fair for city staff was also fair for school staff. Survey responders ranked school accreditation, vocational programs leading to jobs in the shipyard, ports, and naval hospital, and disciplinary changes as priorities for the school system. Several stated that with more relevant school programs, discipline in the schools should improve. 70% of the responders favored the city manager's plan to increase fees for public utilities and stormwater services in lieu of raising property taxes. The fees should be earmarked for maintaining and modernizing public utilities and stormwater management and not for inclusion in the general budget.
Ma'am, we're having a timekeeping problem.
No,
And
sir,
you
it's
have-
fine. It came unplugged. It's okay.
Ma'am?
It came unplugged.
Oh, okay.
It's okay.
You have 1 minute. I was watching the clock.
Thank
behind.
you. We appreciate the opportunity to share the opinions of people for Portsmouth survey responders with you, and we hope that they will have weight in your budget deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next signed-up speaker for the public hearing, 17-140-184A, the public hearing on the city's proposed operating budget, is Katie Vincent. Katie Vincent, and ma'am, you have 5 minutes. The next speaker after her is Alexander Clifton, if you will be prepared to come up.
Good evening, Mayor Rowe, council members, Madam Mayor, good evening. My name is Katie Vincent, 3409 County Street, and I am the president of the Portsmouth Education Association. I am here urging you to support and fund the school board budget. Without a minimum of additional $1.08 million, there will be no raises for any school board employee. Yet, city employees will receive a 2.5% raise plus an additional $500 end of the year bonus. Lack of equity for raises between city and school board employees is hard to understand. We certainly support wage increases for city employees, but we fail to understand how a custodian who cleans an auditorium at one of our high schools faces no raises when one who cleans this very room is budgeted for 2.5% increase. How does a social worker who works for the city get an increase when one employee of the school board does not? Teachers or police officers, school bus drivers or waste management employees, instructional specialists, and public librarians each adds value to the citizens of our city. Each deserve to be fairly compensated for their work. All employees, both on the city ledger and those on the school board payroll, work hard to improve the image of this city. Everyone comes to work every day, committed to making differences for the citizens they serve. They should be no favoring one group over the other. But we know that without the funding of the school board budget, that is a request of favoritism wins. Each of you was elected to the city council, some as recently as last fall. Many of you were interviewed by PEA PAC and completed a questionnaire that included statement that teachers' salaries, while I won't identify individuals here, are quotes from those answers made by current council members. I believe that the state average teacher salary is appropriate goal. Another said, I agree that the budget should be fully funded as forwarded by the school board. A third said the city should fund the school board in the amount sufficient to bring all schools to fully accreditation. Words are cheap, action speaks volume. I strongly urge you to fully fund the school board budget. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Alexander Clifton, followed by Claude Parent. Mr. Clifton. and this is the public hearing on the annual operating budget that's proposed. Sir, you have 5 minutes.
Hi, I'm a member of the Independent Center Incorporated in Norfolk. I want to say they taught me a lot about how to overcome my disability. They help me work on my disability. I have autism, and I met some great friends over there, and I learned a lot over there, and they have some good meetings, and they help me how to take care of myself and live on my own and budget my money, and they help me with a lot of things. They help you. They can help people with in wheelchair, and they have ECI board meetings, and I learned a lot over there. So thank them for helping me over there, and that's it.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Claude Parent, followed by Donna Clifton.
Mayor Rowe, Vice Chair Jerry, council members, Dr. Patton, and guests. Good evening. I'm Claude Parent, and I live at 802 Arnold Palmer Drive. Planning for the 2017-18 budget started many months ago with input from our departments and input from the citizens through the town hall meetings. This budget supports our mission to engage all students in learning that will foster academic excellence and responsible citizenship. We want our students to succeed in school and beyond. Therefore, our budget seeks to provide many types of support for students. It strives to keep a level of knowledge of recent developments with changing educational trends, such as the use of up-to-date classroom technology, while focusing on the standards of learning as required by the Virginia Department of Education. Yet, your funding remains flat. Costs go up each year. For an example, VRS and retirement costs have increased from 14% to 16%, and it's projected to increase again. Healthcare has increased. As an urban division, our students have a wide range of unique needs. And above all, our students need committed and qualified teachers to help them learn. I implore you to join us in supporting a raise for all of our staff. A 2% raise will do three things. One, it will keep our highly qualified teachers in Portsmouth. It will attract the best and the brightest personnel. And three, it will improve morale. We want our teachers, our bus drivers, our instructional assistants, our maintenance workers, and all the employees of the school system to know they are appreciated. There needs to be equity because we've heard that we are one family. During the campaign trail, many of you expressed support for education. You told parents and staff that you stood behind them. Now they're looking for your support. They believed you when you said you supported them. I know the election is over, but will you keep your promise? We do not determine our own funding. We only receive what City Council appropriates to the school board. We are two separate entities and each elected and held responsible to the voters. The school board and the administration have worked with city staff to develop our budget. Needless to say, we felt blindsided by the city manager's proposal, which didn't indicate any money for staff raises. It's especially disappointing in that the city plans to give its employees a 2.5% raise. Again, I thought we were one Portsmouth family. At the State of the City address, Mayor Rowe, you stated that the city's future is bright. We want our schools' futures to be bright too, but that will not happen without your support. Our schools have begun to improve, and we want that to continue. You have said that you want our schools to be accredited. So do we. Our teachers and staff are on the front lines. Their efforts make a difference. Thanks to our qualified staff, we currently offer advanced academic classes, specialty programs in robotics and coding. We celebrate that. We have 2 nationally ranked high schools. We have strengthened our career and technical education course offerings, and we have expanded our partnership with the Tidewater Community College. Outside of the classroom, we have also captured athletic victories, including a consecutive state basketball championship for the last 4 years. Our students continue to excel, in part because of the investment we make in them, their teachers and their staff. I ask you to make that investment too. At the public works session last night, and at a meeting with Mayor Rowe, Dr. Patton, Dr. Bracy, Ms. Dortch, Ms. Kelly, Ms. Goodman, and myself, it was suggested that the city and the school board merge its risk management, general liability, and workman's compensation program into one department that would be operated by the city. We listened closely to the suggestions, and we spent a lot of time reviewing the idea of a merger. We are open to discussing this with the board Thursday night, combining the two risk management programs. That is not the concern. Our chief concern is that your idea to use one-time funds in the risk management fund balance to cover an ongoing raise. Raises should be paid with a dedicated funding stream, not with funds that will likely dry up. How will the school system cover these expenses when the fund balance is depleted? This concern was raised by Dr. Bracy at your meeting last night, and the response was savings. But no information was provided on what those savings would be. Before the school board can begin to consider the idea of a merger, we need to know what is the amount of the city has determined would be saved by the school division. Thank you for your time, and I thank you for your support of the students of Portsmouth Public Schools.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Donna Clifton, followed by Michaela Moore.
Mr. Mayor. Madam Clerk.
You have the floor, Dr. Woodard.
Okay. Mr. Parent,
Well, I'm sorry.
it was for Mr.
we-
Parent.
You have a question for
Mr. Parent, right.
Yes.
Mr. Parent, as you know, we are at this point, as I mentioned in an earlier meeting, because the recommendation of level funding. And so where we are now is that the school board is basically scraping the bottom, saying, well, at least give us enough for raises. As we continue to keep kicking the can down the road on education, our children are suffering from this. My question is, are there some one-time expenses that are included in that $5.4 million request that the school board made to City Council?
We have, of course, the raises are in there, and we had.
Mr. Parent, can you get the mic, please?
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
It-
We have the raises in there. We have there were about 5 different things. We had we've been asking for like 5 or 6 years for instructional assistants. That's additional ones that we need in our kindergarten classrooms. Oh, there it is. Thank you. Okay. The interactive boards for classrooms, middle school music program and equipment, athletic equipment replacement, middle school Chromebooks. We know the high schools have those, all the high school students have a Chromebook, and then school furniture. And this would be a one-time thing.
Okay, could you provide the total of that to City Council, have the
Yes.
superintendent, someone to email
Right.
City Council, let us know what those one-time expenses are?
We'll get that too.
All right,
We'll
thank you.
get that to you.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Donna Clifton, followed by Michaela Moore.
Good evening, Mayor Rowe, Vice Chair Cherry, Dr. Patton, and all of the council people. My name is Donna Clifton. My address is 2301 Palmer Street, Portsmouth, Virginia, 23704. But I stand here today representing the Portsmouth Council of PTAs, whose address is P.O. Box 3443, Portsmouth, Virginia, 23701. Standing with me is my first Vice President, Letitia Thornton, and our Treasurer, Rita Ziegler-Purcell. I'm just simply standing here today to just be an advocate for our children. As you know, Portsmouth PTAs was at an all-time low, and we're excited now that we're at an all-time high. We are excited about the fact that all of our PTAs are now on ground level, and we are now ready to advocate for our children. Our children are our future. You sit in these seats today because somebody pushed you. Somebody was a village for you, and we want our village back for our children. Our teachers need an increase. Now, if you want to talk about how are we going to do it, you may not be able to give them all the money, but you need to give them something, because our children are our future. You want to talk about giving the police and your city workers your increase. Why? Because these other cities are going to come after them with more money, and they're going to go. So what do you think is going to happen to our teachers? Our teachers are going to leave. I am a parent of a 5th grader. Not only am I a parent of a 5th grader, I'm also a substitute teacher for Portsmouth Public Schools. I'm not there for the money because you won't give us any. I'm there because our children need a good, solid education. My son had a 3rd grade teacher who was brand new to Portsmouth Public Schools. She was an innovative teacher. She stayed 1 year in Portsmouth, and now she's at Virginia Beach. Why? Because Virginia Beach offered more money. So what's going to happen to our teachers? We're going to lose our tenured teachers. We're going to lose our accreditation if you don't support what our schools need. So I just wanted to stand here today to let you know that the standard of quality education is important. I know you feel that way, because we do. I know you feel like you can't give the school what they're asking for. I'm not smart enough to know all of the statistics and all of the numbers that all of the people have given here tonight. I just know that our teachers need a raise. I just know that we need to keep quality teachers in Portsmouth. I'm an import into Portsmouth. I'm not from here, but y'all sing this song, Portsmouth is for People. And that's the song that you sing. Well, if Portsmouth is really for our people, then we need to make the people in this city come together with a united front and stand together to bring us all together to make sure that our children are successful. We have 14,000 plus students in this school. Today, we have 2,205 PTA members in this city, and that is disturbing to me. How many of you on this council board are members of PTAs? How many of your family members are members of PTAs? How many citizens are members of PTAs? Every citizen in this city should be attached to one of our schools. We have one PTA in this city, but they're housed at 19 different schools. Pick one. And if you can't pick one, we can help you to pick a school to come in. We don't just want your $5 or $6. I mean, that's wonderful, but that doesn't do much for PTA. We need your time. We need you involved in the schools. Read Across America once a year? No, we need a Read Across America every week. That's what we need. We need volunteers coming into our schools to say, I want to mentor these children. I want to be a part of these children's life. I want to be a part of the growth. How can we grow? We cannot grow without the funding. So I admonish you tonight to please consider the increases that the school needs. Even if you don't consider the whole gamut, give them something. We need something to move this city forward. Our children are dying. They cannot take your jobs if you don't give them what they need to equip them to be smart enough and have the intellect that they need to come in and sit and run the city. We have to build mayors. We have to build city managers. And how do we do that? Through our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that you're interested in our government, and if you're interested, please come to the lectern and let us hear your voice, please. Okay, our next speaker is Michaela Moore, followed by Tegan Rogers. Ms. Moore, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Michaela Moore. I am a senior at IC Norcom High School. I am also the student representative for the school board. Over the last few weeks, I have been meeting with high school students to talk about some courses they would like to see for upcoming students. The classes they suggested are known as CTE classes, such as cybersecurity and sports medicine. These courses not only come with skills you can carry throughout your life, but they come with certifications that students could use to get a good job, good pay, and good quality of living. These courses would also give students a broad resume. In Portsmouth, there are offered AP, dual enrollment, and first college courses. But this is not enough for colleges nowadays. A certification or hands-on experience with prerequisite work within the career we plan to pursue will give admission counselors a reason to give our applications a second review. It could also put us students on the same pedestal as those of the IB academies. With or without the installation of these courses, we as students need great teachers to lead us on the right educational path. Teachers need an incentive to continue their teaching career within Portsmouth Public Schools. This 2% raise will support and retain our teachers. In addition to increased teacher pay, there should also be an increase of teacher aides within kindergarten classrooms. One teacher assigned to 24 students seems a little overwhelming. The kindergarten teachers need help and support with the classroom to occasionally step in and take over or offer assistance. These teacher aides will be a great tool to use for the educational well-being of the students and teachers. If you will support the proposed budget, there will be a gateway of opportunity for teachers and students. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tegan. Please, ladies and gentlemen, please don't clap. If you want to express your voice, come to the lectern. We have a multitude of speakers, and it just takes up time. We'd rather hear your voice. And you're followed by Dr. Eli Bracey. Ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tegan Rogers, and I live at 2 Park Manor Road, Portsmouth, Virginia. I am the alternate student representative of the school board, and I am a senior at Woodrow Wilson High School here in Portsmouth, Virginia. Now, my senior year has been filled with many college applications and scholarship forms, as you might expect. One of the universities I have applied to, they did not accept me into their honors program, which is a little surprising considering I've applied to 20-plus schools, and I've been involved, I've been accepted into all of these as well as all of the other honors programs. Now, this particular college denied me that, and I was very curious as to why. So I gave the president of the honors college a phone call and asked her simply why I wasn't picked, just because I wanted to know what I could improve on. And she simply said that I hadn't taken enough rigorous courses to be eligible for the honors college. Now, this was said despite my taking every challenging course available to me: AP classes, dual enrollment classes, virtual classes, and the first college program, which is a wonderful help. Now, there are few teachers that are qualified for these classes. Advanced placement and dual enrollment, not very many teachers can actually teach these. So when you have teachers who get discouraged by the low amount of pay, they want to go somewhere else reasonably. So when we have to fill in people with other replacements for these jobs, they may not be as qualified as some of the others. So I want to continue by saying that the mission of the Portsmouth Public Schools is to help and educate children. The circumstances previously mentioned will only get worse. Teachers do not have the means to provide for themselves, their families, and their students. If teachers transfer to another school system, this is only pulling down Portsmouth Public Schools' educational system. The board would have to hire more teachers to fill in those positions, and if the pay is at the current level, we will find ourselves without qualified instructors. Please support the budget change. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The next speaker is Dr. Eli Bracey, followed by Jun Shackleford. And sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. Mayor Rowe, City Council, I'm Dr. Eli Bracey III, 2970 Greenwood Drive, and I'm Superintendent of Portsmouth Public Schools. I'm here tonight to ask you for your support for our hardworking teachers and staff. On Monday, 13 News Now aired a story about a nationwide teacher shortage that affects our schools too. As the size of the applicant pool has shrunk, competition for teachers has increased. We're committed to attracting and retaining the brightest staff because that's what our students deserve. We offer various incentives, moving expensive, rent reduction, and others. But a Portsmouth science teacher interviewed in the story shared what she believed to be one of the top reasons for teacher turnover is salary. When my teachers talk, I listen, and I take action. I'm asking you to do the same and provide the funding for a 2% staff raise. Our budget process began in September with the listening tour. I talked with principals, teachers, parents, and students to glean feedback on how our budget affects everyday operations in teaching and learning. What I heard was both inspiring and daunting. Every year, our teachers develop innovative ways to support our wonderful students on a tight budget. Just because they can doesn't mean that they should. Our staff is skilled enough to work anywhere, and we are thankful that they choose Portsmouth Public Schools. We don't want to lose our talented staff to a neighboring school division. We do our best to provide them support, but we rely on City Council to allocate the appropriate money needed for a quality education. We also recognize that we're partners in the budget process. We've participated in the city budget engagement sessions, community surveys, and internal meetings. We've used that feedback to develop a sound budget proposal for your consideration. We have tightened the purse strings where we can, and we only want to use what we need. Still, as we prepare students for college and careers, we must ensure that educational needs are met. That's why, along with raises, we ask for money to grow our career and technical education programs, as well as to expand instructional technology. Also, we're educating a more diverse group of students with various learning needs. Unmet needs for our students pose a threat to our journey of success. Education costs rise every year, including increases in health care, retirement costs for staff. Fluctuations in the state also present real challenges to our school division. Flat funding from the city adds to that problem. City officials talk about the importance of strong schools, so we need help to continue our progress. But so far this budget season, the city hasn't identified any money from its own budget to support our raises. Instead, city staff has scrutinized ours. Last week, the mayor put forth a proposal suggesting that we combine the city and schools division's risk management funds. This fund covers our insurance programs. The mayor suggested it would save money so that we could pay for staff raises, but he provided no details. We are open to the idea of combining programs. However, combining programs is not the immediate issue. Our main concern is using those one-time funds to cover a recurring expense, such as staff raises. When those funds run out, how do you propose we cover those raises in the future? I do not believe that is a sound financial plan. We have shared our concerns with the mayor and his city staff. We've asked for more information about the estimated savings. The city council also asked for the same information last night. This afternoon, the city manager offered me this proposal, and since it just came in, we're still reviewing. But so far, it raises more questions and concerns for the school division. It assumes that state funding will increase in future years. However, we know that state funding changes frequently. It projects that we'll have a certain amount of additional money in the risk management fund, but city staff provided us few details about how they arrived at those figures. Additionally, they do not collaborate with the school division to gather accurate information. In order to further vet this proposal, we're gathering details from the state. We're happy to share what we find after that's discovered. Just as we've collaborated with the city, I implore the city to consult the school division on our budget. Until then, we remain steadfast in our request for additional funds. They are sorely needed to provide our hardworking teachers the staff raises they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Whitaker, you're asking
Yes,
for the floor.
Dr. Bracy. First of all, Dr. Bracy, I want to commend you for the work that you do, as well as your staff and teachers. And also want to commend you for the courage of standing here in front of this council and telling the true issues as far as the budget is concerned. I too am concerned that we are using one-time funds to cover a reoccurring expense, which would be the 2% salary increase, and then sustaining that. And I hope that our citizens are hearing you clearly. This is the superintendent of our schools telling us that it is not just enough to raise teacher salaries, that those teachers also need the resources in the classroom to do their jobs. Our children are our future. Many of us ran on platforms that education was first, and if it is, we ought to fund it like it's first. We have the money. It's just a matter of us putting it in the right place, and I want to commend you for that, and I want to challenge our citizens that if our school system is to be what it is, we must fund it properly, and the issue is not that we do not have the money. We don't have to pit public safety against education. The funds are there to take care of both. It's just a matter of how we're going to do it. But I appreciate your comments tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Jun Shackleford, followed by Harry Dortch. Ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Mayor Rowe, Vice Mayor Cherry, members of City Council, and City Manager Dr. Patton. I'm Jun Shackleford. I'm a 66-year resident of the City of Portsmouth, and I reside at 2437 Sterling Point Drive. I was an educator with the Portsmouth Public Schools for 35 years and a member of the Portsmouth School Board for 8 years. I come before you this evening to urge you to completely fund the Portsmouth Public Schools with the funding that they have requested. I especially request that you strongly consider the $1.1 million that the school board has requested for employee raises. Having been with the school division over the years and having more recently been a member of the school board, I can think no other funding more significant that can honor the employees that serve the children K through 12 in our schools than these requested funds. I know that our city has problems and concerns that relate to funding on many projects, but this request comes with a plea of great importance and great significance. I thank you in advance for your thoughtful and professional consideration of the school board's request for funding. I hope that you, members of this council, will place this at the very top of your priorities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. The next speaker is Harry Dortch, followed by Garland Alexander. And sir, you have 5 minutes.
Mayor Rowe, Vice Mayor, council members, and city manager. My name is Harry Dortch. I'm the president of the Retired Police and Firefighters Association, and I'm retired as a captain on the Portsmouth Fire and Rescue and Emergency Services Department with 32 years of service. I'm here tonight representing our retired association on issues of this year's operating budget. On September 29, 2016, 4 candidates spoke at our monthly meeting asking for support and endorsement from our members. At the meeting, I recall 2 issues of importance by our members. One was the $1,400 HRA fund to be continued and the issue of receiving 1/2 of the general wage increase each year. These issues have been supported in previous budgets before, so the association thinks they are achievable in the 2018 budget. After the election of the new council, the association was informed that the $1,400 HRA fund was updated for the year 2017. I now look for the COLA of 1/2 of the general wage increase to be voted on with the $500 bonus. If the COLA isn't feasible for the operating budget of 2018, I would like to see an additional $500 added to the $500 that the city manager has proposed for the 2018 budget. This could be divided into 2 payments, one in $500 in July and one $500 in December. We would like unanimous support from the council on this issue. I look forward to meeting with each of you and expressing ideas on how to show respect to the retirees of this great city of ours that they have worked so hard for. I would like to thank the mayor, council members, and city manager for listening to our representatives. Garland Alexander, Melvin Parker, and Grover Holloman present ideas of how to best serve our retirees. We are supported by the local 539 Fire Union, which over 90 of us are still retired active members. I would like to close by just expressing to you, each of you, how I feel. I take a commitment from someone as their word, and this builds trust for our future endeavors. I would like to thank each of you for your time and the privilege to speak to you on behalf of the Retired Police and Firefighters Association. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker is Garland Alexander, followed by Sylvester Adkins. And sir, you got 5 minutes.
Let me get my glasses so I can see. Mayor Rowe, Vice Mayor Cherry, City Manager, City Council and City Manager Dr. Patton. My name is Garland Alexander. I live at 2913 Tanbark Lane. I want to address the 2018 budget as it relates to cost of living raise or stipend. We know that manager has $500 stipend in this year's budget for retirees. The committee and I am on the committee and I'm on has tried several different options to add additional funds to retirees who have been retired for a number of years. This includes the widows that make as little as $11,000 per year. We ask that half of the general wage employees' raise be added to, we ask that for one half of the general wage employees' raise or additional $500 to each retiree added to the budget. You can pay the $500 in July and December. The City Council has said number one priority in the city was poverty. Poverty exists in the retired city employees also. We are asking the City Council to assist the city manager to find the funds to honor our request. And I would ask that everybody agrees with my comments to please stand. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, sir. The chair recognizes Councilman Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Alexander, thank you for being here. I don't know if you were in the public works session. The city manager has assured council that she'll get back with us on some ideas. One idea is to identify the retirees that have served the city for 20 years or greater and look at that in relationship to the $500 stipend in the month of December. So I think she said she would be back in a couple of weeks with that information. So I'm sure we'll keep you abreast.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker is Sylvester Adkins, followed by Shannon Glover. And sir, you have 5 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, Madam City Manager, and council members, good evening. My name is Sylvester Adkins. I reside at 942 Chumley Road. I am here representing the Independent Center Incorporated in Norfolk, Virginia, on behalf of our Executive Director, Stephen Johnson, the staff, and all of our participants. We want to thank you for the funding that you gave us last year. We are again requesting funding. The Independent Center is the only organization in Southampton Roads that provides independent living services which are based on the consumer-directed model. The model incorporates peer mentors and follows people with disabilities to receive services from other people with disabilities who have had to resolve some of the same issues in their own lives. ECI has been serving people with disabilities and working with local governments, including the city of Portsmouth, for more than 34 years. The funds we're requesting will allow us to work with residents, Portsmouth residents, who have disabilities to provide them with core services, including peer mentoring and counseling, independent living skills training, individual advocacy, housing placement, and information and referral. The services are designed to ensure that the person has the tools they need to help themselves and to be self-sufficient as possible to achieve a greater quality of life. The funds we are requesting will allow us to work with a minimum of 100 unduplicated people with disabilities residing in the city of Portsmouth. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Shannon Glover, followed by Melvin E. Moore, Jr. Sir, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, Dr. Patton, City Attorney, City Clerk, and all who chose to come out tonight. My name is Shannon E. Glover. I reside at 4113 Pendleton Road in Portsmouth. We will get what we are willing to pay for in terms of education. I am here to support the 2% increase for all the employees of the school system, in addition to support funding for the 52 positions that are needed for instructional assistants for our kindergartners. First of all, I'm a business owner, a community servant, an advocate for education, and chairman of the Education Committee of the Portsmouth Partnership. I understand that state funding has decreased over the last 3 to 4 years by about $3.6 million. Nevertheless, it is incumbent upon us, and it is the responsibility of our city leadership and our city council to find the funds that are necessary to provide the needs of our children. Currently, our system is challenged. I mean, we have a number of children, perhaps 65 to 70%, that are on free and reduced lunch. That is a big deal. And we understand as a community that, we have to tighten our belts at certain times, but it is important, and I cannot stress enough, for example, in the kindergarten classrooms, you just heard the young lady come up here and talk about one educator to 24 kindergartners. I have twin grandbabies, and it's hard for me to manage those too. Can you imagine one educator managing 24 kindergartners? Think about that for a moment. What are we asking that person to do? And I recognize that, every child is not going to sit in the seat properly and take the instruction because, our kids do come from different backgrounds. And so we have to have someone else in that classroom to help manage those educational expectations. The other thing is currently 8 out of 19 of our schools are accredited, with 4 on provisional accreditation. Dr. Bracey and his team, I know he's been here a little over 2 years, have worked very hard to continue that trend of accreditation. And in order for him and his staff to do that and make the gains that we will continue to seek and look forward to, they need to have the resources available to get the job done. We will get what we are willing to pay for. I think about it from a standpoint of myself. My mom raised 6 kids. We were in that class. We were on that free and reduced lunch situation. And what happened, because my mother had encouraged education in our family, because she told us it was the great equalizer, it enabled her son, myself, Shannon, to go to college, to go in the United States Navy, to be a success, and then to pass on that trend of success to his children. That's what's at stake when we choose not to fund education appropriately. We miss an opportunity to provide those children, the least amongst us, with the tools that they need to be successful, contributing members of society. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker is Melvin E. Moore Jr., followed by Mark Godolgi-Yotrowski. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, distinguished councilmen and women of Portsmouth. Thank you for your service and commitment to this great city. My name is Melvin Moore, and I am a world history teacher at Woodrow Wilson High School. I represent the many stakeholders of Portsmouth Public Schools, parents, teachers, and community partners. I also speak for the thousands of students who we are responsible for meeting their needs and by providing a fair and equitable education. I stand before you to speak on the issue concerning the 2% pay increase for teachers proposed by the school board and superintendent. Tax-paying citizens expect their tax revenue to be utilized for the greater good of all, as public officials are expected to make sound fiscal decisions to better the city and its residents. Both roles are vital for the overall success of this municipality. Subsequently, both constituent and policymaker should share priorities while appreciating the other's value. We all want what's best for our children. Therefore, the initial objective should be to prioritize what is most important. And nothing is more important than investing in future generations of young people through education and economic opportunity. I pose a question. What is the most valuable resource in the world? As you ponder, some would answer precious metals, oils, maybe perhaps money. I would say they are wrong. The most valuable resource in the world is human capital, the investment and utilization of people. Schools are still in the business of preparing young people to help companies be competitive in the global economy. Moreover, demographically, our schools provide opportunities for some children who would otherwise be excluded from participating in the American dream. Children and their educational opportunities must be a priority, and you as policymakers should be stewards of such opportunities. Are you truly committed to the Task Force on Poverty and its purpose? Job creation, workforce preparation, youth development, and most importantly, education. Teachers play a vital role in the educational process. Therefore, offering competitive salaries is a critical piece to the advancement of our students. According to Reginald Green, classroom instruction is the most important aspect of student performance. If classroom instruction is the key element to student achievement, then there must be a premium placed on teacher salaries. According to the National Association of Colleges and Employers, Virginia is ranked 30th among states in average salaries of teachers. 30th. That's the bottom half of the country. Teachers start lower than other degree professions, and the more years they put into teaching, the wider the salary gap becomes. Portsmouth collects the maximum legal local sales tax of 6%. The average around the state is 5.47. Portsmouth has the highest property tax rate at $1.30 per 100 assessed value. Norfolk has $1.15, Chesapeake has $1.05, Suffolk has $1.03, and Virginia Beach is 93 cents per 100 respectively. Portsmouth has the highest fast food tax at 11.5% tariff. Chesapeake and Virginia Beach are at 10.5% respectively. I have provided copies of comprehensive reports for the council at their request. A teacher with a 20-plus years of experience would generally earn $2,714 less annually than a Chesapeake teacher, $3,160 less annually than a teacher in Virginia Beach. A teacher with 0 to 6 years of teaching in Portsmouth would generally earn $1,388 less than Chesapeake, $1,654 less than Virginia Beach in the first 6 years. Now, because we live in a result-driven society, it is important to emphasize data which illustrates the level to which a city generates tax revenue. Yet, teachers are not paid on the same scale as neighboring cities with a lower tax rate. Translation, Portsmouth employees earn less and pay more in taxes. This bears the reason we perniciously lose some of our best educators to other school districts of non-competitive wages and taxes. Competitive teacher salaries should not be politicized. Rather, a moral obligation to the students and parents of the communities in which you serve. I want our children to grow up and become educators, along with professional athletes and doctors and attorneys, but the teaching profession should be perceived as more than just a menial job, a respectable, rewarding profession which remunerations should reflect its importance.
Sir,
I thank you for your time, and God bless.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Mark Godelgi Yotrowski, followed by Molly Feeney. Sir, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and my neighbors. Before I put everybody to sleep, let me ask you to, if you believe that the current budget underfunds public education, would you please stand with me? Thank you. I believe, as they do, that if our education system is to give our children the best head start in life, we need to be fully committed to the genuine needs of the school system. And so I urge you to struggle some more to find funding for those needs. You were working on achieving a level of parity between city workers and school workers this evening in your work session. Not everybody in here is aware of those discussions. Wrestle with it some more, please. This is important. With that said, I want to address a couple of other issues in the budget. One of them is compensation for retirees. 4 years ago, this city committed itself to $169 million, almost $170 million in additional debt to shore up the city's retirement funds. That, on an annual basis, that debt and the annual required contributions to the pension plans, the two city-funded pension plans, works out to about 3 cents on the real estate tax rate for every citizen in here. Yet, people will come to this microphone and tell you that you should put more money in to giving them raises. Now, if those pension plans are properly funded and properly administered, the earnings of those plans should be yielding cost of living increases for the retirees. So it is important that those plans be properly funded and properly managed. But to come back to the taxpayer every year after the enormous commitment that we have already made for annual bumps, that's not right. And as somebody who is drawing retirement income today from accounts that I funded and my employer funded, and living on the earnings that those accounts have made, I resent other people, other retirees, other people in my age bracket who are pulling money out of my retirement account to fund them. It's not equitable. And the fact that I didn't work for the city doesn't mean that I didn't earn the money that I put into my retirement accounts. Lastly, I am hard-pressed to see how the recurring income in the city's revenue stream is paying for recurring expenses in terms of salary increases for the employees. I believe they deserve them, but in sitting through the work sessions on the budgets, I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing flat real estate revenues. I'm seeing a steep cut in personal property revenues and no amazing increase in any other general revenue stream. So if you're matching recurring revenues with recurring expenses, I need to have it broken down so that I can see it better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker is Molly Finney. Excuse me for mispronouncing that. Followed by Tanya Williams.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. My name is Molly Finney. I live at 3834 Headwind Lane in Portsmouth, Virginia, 23704. I am here today to speak on the school board budget. I too believe that our teachers need a raise and then some. I'll give you a classic example. At Churchland Primary, my son's kindergarten year, the principal walked out in the middle of the school year, just left the building and never came back. That is an example of leadership at that school at that time. Why? There was no PTA. There was no teacher involvement. The teachers did the bare minimum. They didn't utilize the books in the classroom. Things were a mess. And that school went from being a 7 to now being a 4 in less than 2 years as far as the ratings. So now we have a new principal, but we have the same problems. I noticed that there were some allocations for roofs and bleachers at Churchland Primary Intermediate. There are no walls in the classrooms. We have 80 first graders divided by 2-sided particle board that live in the middle of a hallway. They sit less than 4 inches apart. There are no teaching assistants. Each class is 22 people. So it's an open air environment for over 80 first graders, 80 second graders, 80 third graders, that all are distracted by who walks around in the hallway where there are no doors. What does that mean? There's no blackboards. There's no getting up and writing. There is no access to a bookshelf. There are only 2 computers. Half the keyboards are broken. Of the 4 headsets that are in each classroom, perhaps 1 is operable. These are the things that make Portsmouth schools the least favorable school to attend. Now, I am not a Portsmouth native. I'm a graduate of the University of Florida. I came here and I bought a home in Portsmouth. Now, what does that mean for me with an accounting degree? It means I drive to Virginia Beach to get paid decently. So I pay my taxes going through the tolls. I pay my taxes because I live here. I have a gifted first grader. However, there is no gifted program. Now, there is a Portsmouth Gifted and Talented Department or division. What that means to Churchland Primary is between the hours of 1 and 4 on Friday afternoon, we have 1 teacher that comes to the school for 4 hours. She teaches first grade through 6th grade gifted program in that 4 hours once a week. That is not a gifted program. There is no accelerated reader program. The iReader program that Portsmouth City funds only has 2 computers per classroom. It's not being utilized, and it's not a cheap program. What I'm asking for is somebody to look at what really needs to be done, and whether it falls underneath the Portsmouth School Board funding or it has general building fund. We need walls. We need salaries that make the teachers not just walk out. Because what we end up with are the teachers that can't get hired at the other cities. The teachers that don't want to embrace the STEM program. The teachers that don't want to grow, that just want to stay there 1 more year and retire, like my son's current teacher. We need to focus, because the better our schools rate, the higher our taxes will go up, because our properties will be worth more. Our property value will increase. We'll get people moving to Portsmouth like they move to York County, like they fight to live in Great Bridge, because those are the best schools. We need Portsmouth to shine for something. Let it be for our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker, please. The next speaker is Tanya Williams, followed by Reverend Dr. Ernest Simmons. Ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. I'm back. Good evening, Mayor Rowe, Vice Mayor Cherry, Dr. Patton, and all the city member council. My name is Tandra Williams. I reside at 115 Gimmerton Avenue, Portsmouth, Virginia. I have worked with children for over 20 years. The city of Portsmouth have excellent teachers and excellent administrators, and one of the best superintendents, Dr. Bracy, that we've had in a long time. It is no longer a rumor or a myth that our talented, highly trained, and well-educated teachers are applying to other cities within the 757 and other surrounding areas, Richmond, D.C., Maryland, and other areas up north. How many more teachers need to make that hard decision to leave the students they build bonds with, parents that they gain trust with, to vacate the Portsmouth public school system, which they love? They love being here. Because of the pay and the lack of funding, no educator should have to choose between the students they educate and their own family expenses due to salary or the lack of potential to make just as much as the other educators that's across the water. Teachers spending their own salary in their classrooms because we love to and because of the lack. When our educators leave Portsmouth, so does the taxes that they pay and the revenue that we spend here in our beautiful city of Portsmouth. When funds are not fairly allocated, it not only hurts the students of Portsmouth, it also hurts the city of Portsmouth. Economically, it doesn't make sense. Education is the foundation that builds success, like myself, born and raised and educated in the city of Portsmouth. I ask that you support the increase for the raises. I remember every teacher that I had in Portsmouth. They were awesome teachers. I remember Dr. Patton coming out to the schools as well. I love Portsmouth, and if I had the money to give, I would. But I've been one of those teachers and educators that would spend the little bit of money that I made back into my classrooms. Please support the raise. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Whitaker, you're asking for the floor. You
Yes,
have it.
thank you, Ms. Williams. I just want to share, because several speakers have come up and requested that council support the raises. There will be a raise given to the teachers. What the citizens need to be clear on is that this council is suggesting that the school system fund the raise. You got to be clear on that. They're asking for the school system to take from the risk management fund and use those funds to fund the raise. However, if you go back and look at the video of our previous work session, you will note that there is uncertainty in how those raises will be sustained in the future. And so the issue is not before this council whether the raise will occur. You have a majority on this council that is saying fund your own raise. But I saw a lot of people stand up a few minutes ago telling council to put the money in education. And I just want to say this, that I hate to see Portsmouth following a trend that's happening under this Trump administration. We just got a report that millions of dollars will be shifted from education to fund defense. I would hate to see us in this city succumb to that type of funding mentality, but we have to press for our students and our children. So I want you to know it is there, but it's for you to fund. All right.
Thank you, ma'am. The next speaker is Reverend Dr. Ernest Simmons, followed by Dr. James Allen. And sir, you have 5 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, honorable council members. My name is Reverend Dr. Ernest Simmons. I live in Chesapeake. My address is 4521 Moonlight Way in Chesapeake. I'm here because I'm the president of the Pastors Department for the Sharon Missionary Baptist Association. I'm also a member of SEMA in Suffolk, I'm also a member of SEMA, which is the Ministerial Alliance in Suffolk, part of the social and political Action Group. I'm here in support of everyone that asks that are asking that the council supports the budget that was submitted by the school board. I'm very concerned about the present federal administration, the Trump administration, with the funding and the slashing that they're going to give to our public school systems and the charter schools and things of that nature. Please, I'm asking, there's a book that I read that says people are destroyed because of lack of knowledge. Our children need knowledge, but they also need passionate school teachers that will give them that knowledge. And I just stand here to support all of those that have asked. I have 3 children and 2 grandchildren that have graduated from the Portsmouth public school system. And I ask that you support the budget that has been submitted by the school board. That's my request. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker is Dr. James Allen, followed by Reverend Dr. Reginald Woodhouse. Sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. I am Minister Dr. James Allen. I come today as the president of the Virginia Beach Interdenominational Ministers Conference, and I also bring the perspective of being a professional realtor to this particular conversation. In my duties as the president of Virginia Beach Ministers Conference, I am called to these type of situations over and over and over again. It's becoming increasingly common for me to be asked to come and share with the people who are our leadership. And in this particular instance, then we are all very much aware that there is an attack on the public school systems all across this nation. And quite honestly, low salaries, teachers putting out of their own pockets to fund classroom activities. I have grandkids who came home one day, wanted me to help them with the math class, and I said, well, let's see what your book example has to say. And she said, Granddaddy, we don't have enough books to go home. These are the type of things that need to be changed, and this is what I'm here to try to encourage you to do. It has been told to us that the money is in the budget so that the city can fund the school-raised budget, and not only that, but the buildings. It is unconscionable to me that here in America we have places where our students are the last of our priorities. It makes absolutely zero sense to me. And so I'm asking you to make sure that you take a look and adequately fund your schools. There's an additional problem that comes with lack of funding in our schools, and that's a cultural component to this thing. Everyone in here is aware of the school-to-prison pipeline. Everyone in here is aware of the fact that if your children are not reading by the time they're in the 3rd grade, then they start building prisons for them. I don't know how many of you are aware of the fact that there are people who are in these private prisoners' business, sending letters and emails to their Congress people telling them, hey, in order for us to maintain our 14 and 15% growth, we need some more prisoners. And the way you get more prisoners is to have more uneducated children. We have a situation with our police forces. I talk to them all the time. They're telling us every day, well, Mr. Allen, you know, we got so many kids out here that are just not educated. The reason they're not educated is because we're not giving them the tools they need to be educated. As a college professor myself, everybody doesn't learn the same way. Our teachers are hamstrung with trying to teach to the SOL standards. We have good teachers across this country, good teachers in Hampton Roads. I talk to them all the time. And they are not allowed to teach with the innovative ideas and the things that they need to do because they have to teach the tests. These are things that you all in leadership can change. That is the spiritual component to this particular situation. As leaders, we are all called to do the things that's best for all people, not just business people, not just public-private partnerships who's going to build another bridge and build another road, and then I got to charge me tolls to take my public money that I helped buy this thing with, and then I got to pay them to drive on it too. Why don't we take those type of funds that we give to those businesses and invest them in our children? We're up here arguing about a 2% raise. If a teacher is making $50,000 a year, a 2% raise equates to $1,000 a year. That equates to $83.33 per month. If they are in a 28% tax bracket, they walk away with $60 per month. We ought to be ashamed of ourselves. Why don't we turn this thing around right here, right now. Instead of us talking about a 2% raise and giving the school board 1.08 million, why don't we give them 4 million? Why not make Portsmouth the epitome of what public education should be like? As a real estate agent, I can tell you right now, the first thing that people want to know is what type of school system do we have? Nobody's going to move to a place where the school system has got people with a partition board separating classes. Would you send your children there? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker is Reverend Dr. Reginald Woodhouse. And sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Rowe, Vice Mayor Cherry, members of the City Council, City Clerk, and administrative staff. My name is Reginald Woodhouse. I'm the pastor of First Baptist Church, Jefferson Park, 615 42nd Street. My sister is an educator here in the Portsmouth school system, and I've also served as a substitute teacher. I am here in support of my colleague in ministry and in service to the community, Councilman Dr. Mark Whitaker, who's called on the clergy and the citizens to support funding for the public education in Portsmouth. There's a national attack upon funding for public education, and it seems that education is always put or placed on the back burner. We must let our public officials know that it is unacceptable not to consider to fund our schools and children's education. The investment of our children and those who teach them is the most important and powerful weapon we can use to change the world and to make our cities better. And so I urge you and I request that you please support the request of the school board for full funding of its proposed budget. It's been my understanding that they're asking for the city council to support it and to support the raises that they have requested for the teachers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That is the last of the persons that have signed up, and we're still on agenda item 17184A, which is the public hearing on the annual operating budget that's proposed by the city manager for fiscal year 2017-2018. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Please come to the lectern, and you have 5 minutes. Please state your name and address, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council. My name is Sergio O'Neill, and my address is 1560 Darren Circle in the city of Portsmouth. I come to speak on the budget for one reason and one reason only. As a parent advocate for people that have children in Portsmouth Public Schools, it's kind of a twofold process. One thing I would ask the City Council to do, if there is a consideration and it is passed to give school system employees the 2.5% raise, that they look into making sure that some of the money that goes into those raises is kind of an incentive for them to make sure that they look at the discipline processes that they have in place for children under those educators who are receiving this additional money. Because granted, some of these teachers, they deal with hard discipline problems. However, if they get a raise and they see the same rates of discipline that we currently have in the school system, then that's an alarming figure. Sometimes you can't pay somebody enough to actually care about children and stop kicking them out of school. That's the first and foremost. That's something that needs to be looked at. The second thing is that if you look at some of the amount of administration in Portsmouth Public Schools, that's another concerning figure. Why do some of these schools have so much administration? If you take some of the administrators and give that cost right there to the teachers, that's some of that 2.5% right there. That solves the problem right there. Why do you have so much administration, but yet still you're struggling to find teachers? If you don't have the teachers, why have 5 principals in the school? It doesn't make sense to me at all. As a taxpayer, what does that look like to us? That doesn't make any sense. So if the school system wants the 2.5% wholehearted, if those teachers earned it and they really work hard for it, then give it to them. But at the same time, too, ask them to look at the money that they currently have and find out what can they do to make up some of that money. Because I honestly feel like some of those teachers need more than 2.5%. One of my teachers that was teaching school when I was in school in Portsmouth Public Schools is still teaching right now. And I know doggone well she worked very hard for every dollar that she earned. Because they see they say that they have the hardest schools now, but she taught at Hunt Mountain Middle School, the absolute worst, and made it through there. And if she made it through there and is still teaching today, then she needs more than 2.5%. So, and then the other thing too is recreation on another fold. Why does Portsmouth have a lack of recreation for the kids? Look at Virginia Beach. Granted, they pay for it, but it works. Portsmouth definitely needs to invest in its recreation department. I remember when Dr. Patton was in charge of the recreation department, I was a volunteer for Portsmouth Parks and Recreation. And trust me, when I volunteered and they built a facility right down the street on Elm Avenue, we had over 300 kids to come through the summer program when it was free. And you can best believe those kids enjoy every bit of that summer program. Now the summer program is over $300. I wanted to send my son to the Portsmouth Parks and Recreation Summer Camp, and he is a citizen of Hampton. But I was going to drive my son all the way from Hampton to Portsmouth every day just to be in that program. But at $300-some, I think not. It's just not happening. We definitely need to put more money into recreation. It has to happen. It's unfair to have kids that are already in struggling schools to come out on the street and have to absolve a struggling recreation program. Some of those people that work in Portsmouth Parks and Recreation, like the site manager at Cavalier Manor Recreation Center, she was working for Portsmouth Parks and Rec when I was there. And she still is working hard and make sure that those kids are taken care of. And I know personally that she comes out her own pocket to take care of some of those kids when they are struggling, because she did me the same way. What I know right now, and being in the professional world that I'm in as an operations manager, I know me, if I was one of those people in upper leadership that saw people struggling in my lower departments, I would take a pay cut. I do it right now. And I've ran multi-million-dollar establishments. I do it right now. When they come to say, Sergio, is it time for you to raise? No, it's not time for me to raise. Let me look at my lower level employees and see what they need first. That's the direction that the budget needs to take. So we can look at this thing and say, okay, you know what? Let's see how some of our top people are, see what their bottom people are at, and let's compare and fix the people at the bottom first. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. We're continuing the public hearing on the proposed annual operating budget. Next speaker, please come to the lectern, state your name and your address, and you have 5 minutes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor Rowe, Vice Mayor, City Manager. My name is Valerie, and other council members. My name is Valerie Scott. I'm a product of Portsmouth Public School System. I do not live in Portsmouth, but I work in Portsmouth at the Norfolk Naval Shipyard. I also volunteer as a tutor before the school day at Douglas Park Elementary with reading and mathematics. And I stand before you, I'm a little bit nervous. I wanted to echo what the pastor said when he said that we all know that the number of prisons is determined by the success of our third graders. And so I asked, wouldn't it behoove us to be proactive and invest that money in educating our children rather than building prisons? Understand that determining a budget is challenging and sacrifices have to be made. However, investing in our children makes us good stewards of the taxpayers' money. I sit here today listening to the comments of everyone in the room, and I just cannot believe that if the PTA, local community groups, local clergy, students, and even the school superintendent himself can rise and request that the city council fund the requested 2.5% increase, that you would not do so. I'm sure that even the retired police and firemen would not deny giving the children what they need by giving the teachers what they need. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We're continuing the public hearing on the proposed annual operating budget. Next speaker, please come to the lectern, state your name and your address, please. And sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Rowe, Dr. Patton. My name is Barry Randall from the Brighton and Craddock section of Portsmouth. I was very apprehensive of coming up here and speaking, especially looking to my left and seeing someone who I respect so highly, the Honorable Costello B. Williams, in the audience. Hopefully she'll love me even after this. But after I sat there for a long time, I find it very disheartening that a lot of people will come here tonight and sort of kind of bully you all into making you do something that I don't believe that you all are asking that is fair. Do our teachers need raises? Of course they do. But let's be honest about this thing. If we're going to tell the truth and say that people are leaving the school system because of lack of pay, then we should have also an influx of college graduates, of persons that went to school, because Portsmouth is the highest paying teacher position for entry-level teachers. That is a fact. So if we're losing teachers because of pay, then we should also be getting a lot of teachers that want to come here first for first-time teaching positions, because Portsmouth pays more than Virginia Beach. But if a principal left a school in the middle of the day, I can assure you it had nothing to do with pay, but it has everything to do with behavioral issues. I don't care if you put 25 instructional assistants in a classroom. We have a no-hands policy in this 2017. 25, 30 years ago, teacher tell you to do something and you didn't do it, they could paddle you and get the respect. The problem is we're not getting the respect from the parents that are helping us as educators, because when you have to tell a child 25 times to sit down, that becomes a problem. And there's not enough money in the world that can pay you. And if we're going to be honest, we need a school board to be held accountable. All these people packing this out, they need to be at the school board meeting asking the school board, what can they do? And I'm here tonight just to also advocate for bus drivers. I believe, and I respect Dr. Bracey too, I saw him over there, great guy. But under his leadership, the tier below him, they need to deal with that. You have a bus transportation guy hiring people that has never driven buses before, but he's the trainer now. But you have people that train people to drive buses not getting the job. You have bus drivers that have children that have to be picked up by 5 o'clock, and if they don't do a second run, a double run, a third run, they're being threatened with their jobs. But I don't hear nobody up here advocating for bus drivers to get a raise and the janitors to get a raise, because these parents today know what they have at home. That's why they'll send the child to school sick, because they don't want to have to sit at home and say, sit down, stop, no, sit down, stop, no. But they want teachers who went to school and got loans to educate, to have to sit all day and deal with behavior issues. These teachers aren't leaving just because of lack of pay. They're leaving because they are tired of dealing with abusive leadership and behavior issues. So you all can be intimidated, because I'm really not scared of nobody. But a room of 150 people, it's 96,000 residents. But they want to hold Lisa Lucasberg, Nathan Clark, and Elizabeth Simmons based upon quotes that they made this past election. It's ludicrous. And in my conclusion, I want to say, it doesn't matter how many people you get to come out to talk about money, money, money. Hold the school board accountable and ask them to work with Dr. Bracey, who's a great guy, to figure out what do they need to cut, positions they need to let go, and then come back. Because I guarantee you, Dr. Patton, if you ask for hard data, ask them to poll all their teachers what their number one issue is. I guarantee you, they're going to talk about money, but behavior is going to be the number one top thing. People are not just leaving Portsmouth because of the lack of money. And under Councilman Whitaker and former Mayor Wright's leadership, that's right, you all better take care of this, the police department, because folk got killed under their leadership that ain't, and their perpetrators aren't in jail. But here today, I applaud Chief Chapman and the Portsmouth Police Department. We had a gentleman get killed 2 weeks ago, and the person that killed him was arrested 9 to 12 days later. I think that deserves a rousing hand clap, because at the end of the day, these parents want justice. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Next speaker, if you'll state your name and your address, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, and I have handouts. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, Dr. Patton. My name is Susan Fink, and I'm the Executive Director of Friends of the Portsmouth Juvenile Court. Thank you for this opportunity to be here tonight. It must be kismet that I'm following Barry Randall, because I want to tell you a little bit about my Monday morning, and it seems like it was a long time ago. But before I had even gotten to my office, I was walking down the hall in the J&D court, and a fight broke out between 2 young men. This isn't the first time that this has happened in the J&D court. The 2 men had squared off, and a crowd was gathering around them, including the children in the J&D court. I was pretty horrified at what I saw and went running down the hall screaming like a wild woman, asking for security to come out and help. The bailiffs finally came out of the courtroom, and they subdued the 2 young men. There was profanities flying, and the children were just standing around watching the whole thing occur. Once this calmed down, we moved on to our staff meeting, where we talked about what we needed to do for a young woman who had been in and out of the juvenile justice system, and we were fairly certain that she was being trafficked in Norfolk. We're fairly limited in what we have the authority to do, so we had to reach out to our colleagues and implore that this young woman be taken to CHKD for assessment and to receive the services that we felt she needed. Our staff meeting ended, and we all went our separate ways, and I got a phone call. Our site supervisor at the Goodwill store, at the brand new Goodwill store, had been brutally beaten the night before by 3 young men. She had been taken to Norfolk General Hospital, where she was in a coma. Some of you may know her. She says hello when you come through the door. She treats all of our kids that we assign to the Goodwill store with respect and courtesy. She truly wants them to succeed. She's in Norfolk General Hospital tonight. She's probably not going to make it. Our hearts were broken. Mine still is. Now, what does this have to do with budget? Well, you fund what you care about. And from my point of view, Portsmouth children are getting short shrift. On Monday, I saw and I felt the full weight of that. We need violence prevention programs in our city, not in high school, people, in elementary and middle school. Every child needs to learn about conflict resolution, anger management, and empathy. Empathy. Every child needs to get the message that they're important and that they have a significant contribution to make. Behavioral Health Care Services has a 3-person prevention team, and they use an evidence-based program. They need the time and the resources to make sure that every middle and elementary school receives those evidence-based programs. If we funded prevention, maybe we wouldn't have to fund treatment so much. The research is out there to prove that. On another thing about our children, every Portsmouth child should be in pre-K. The economic and social benefits of pre-K education are widely documented. We don't need a committee, we don't need a task force. We just need to muster the political will and the resources to do it. It's not debatable. Every child needs to be in pre-K. What about the mental health of the children that go through these traumas? I looked at the faces of those kids in the hall at J&D. They were traumatized. They were horrified. Many of the children in our city have been exposed to horrific violence in ways that you can't imagine. I know kids that have been shown pornography and said, now I want you to emulate that. I know kids.
Ma'am, your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. The public hearing continues on the proposed annual operating budget for fiscal year 2017-18. Next speaker, we welcome you to the lectern. Does anybody else want to speak on the council's consideration of the proposed budget, operating budget for fiscal year 2017-2018? Yes, sir. Please come to the lectern, state your name, address, and you have 5 minutes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Lorenzo Waters from the Kevlar Mountain section of Portsmouth. And I sat here and I observed a lot. And I know that the money is there to support the schools. The money is there. The point of the matter is the council going to vote to support the school budget. And I sat and listened, and it's not just about supporting the schools, you're also investing in our children. And that means a lot. And I heard about the problems that's going on in the classrooms, and I challenge the citizens of Portsmouth to have a conscious mind and be aware of how this council vote on this budget. Hold the council members that you voted for accountable for how they vote. Know about what they voted on and look and understand how they are voting. And question them on why did they vote that way. Because there are some up there now, when you was running, you even came through my neighborhood. And I looked at your bios that I got in the mail, that I received from you myself about education. But I heard the talk, but now we'll see if that talk is true on how you vote on this school budget. Because like I said, it is supporting the schools, but it's also investing in our children. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The public hearing continues. Any other speakers on the consideration of the proposed operating budget? Any other speakers? I hereby declare this public hearing closed, and we're now at agenda item. Give me 1 second. Okay. We just closed the public hearing on the operating budget, and we're starting the public hearing under item 17184B. And Madam Clerk, would you read the caption for that public hearing?
Sir. Public hearing to consider the annual operating budget that establishes or increases the rates or fees for sewer charges, residential solid waste fees, water charges, residential and commercial stormwater fees, building permit and inspection fees, city planning, zoning, special permit, and wetlands fees, fire service charges and fees, parks and recreation fees, and parking surface lot garage rates to take effect on July 1st, 2017.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on the various fees and rates and taxes that are associated with proposed operating budget, and I now open the public hearing, and we do have one person signed up to speak, and that's Mark Godelji Yotrowski. Sir, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor, honorable council members, and neighbors. About 4 years ago, council raised a fee, the purpose of which was to add 1% to the salary increases for city employees. That fee is the license decal fee, which went from the decal fee, which, of course, there's no decal, but you pay the fee anyway, went from $25 a year per vehicle to $32 a year per vehicle. Now, I maintain that that was not an appropriate way to meet the goal. And so there has been some skepticism in the public. One of the questions on the survey that Dr. Clopel talked about earlier was whether citizens wanted to pay higher water rates and stormwater rates and trash disposal fees to fund recurring expenses in the city of Portsmouth. So you've created a suspicion, and the transfer of funds from enterprise funds like water, sewer, trash disposal, and so on, into the general fund under the umbrella of payment in lieu of taxes creates additional skepticism about what's really going on here. I have seen the projections in terms of what has to be expended to maintain a functional water system. So I'm not as suspicious as some others may be. I recognize that there are continuing maintenance issues. One of them will be on the agenda tonight regarding water mains from Suffolk feeding the downtown portion of Portsmouth. We have old infrastructure. It must be maintained if we are to continue service uninterrupted. But it is imperative that in proposing these increases, you are crystal clear so the public understands that you're not creating a slush fund that you can then use to pay for things that ought to be paid for out of general fund revenues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. This is a public hearing on the various rates and fees and taxes associated with the proposed budget. If you desire to speak, please come to the lectern, state your name and your address. Does anybody else desire to speak at this public hearing? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed, which brings us to the last public hearing, which is a public hearing on the recommended 2018-2022, the 5-year capital improvements program. And Madam Clerk, this has been advertised? Okay. I declare the public hearing open, and we have one person who has signed up in advance, and that's Mark Godelji Yotrowski. Sir, you have 5 minutes. Please state your name and address.
It's on the record, sir, on my sign-up card, but I am Mark Godelji Yotrowski, and I live in the Sterling Point section of Portsmouth. There was a lot of talk during the last campaign season about relocation of the jail, and this is often a hot topic. But nothing is going to happen with jail relocation when the capital improvement plan has no funds allocated for it. So when is the talk going to turn into work? The Portsmouth Sportsplex. Some people believe, as you heard from an earlier speaker, that this major investment we made to improve the recreational offerings in the city of Portsmouth should be put back on the market, although the proposal that it be sold to the shipyard kind of puzzled me because the shipyard is not a taxable entity, so you don't gain anything by turning that land over to them. I believe that the city made a bold move with the acquisition of those 33 acres. And considering the amount of time that that property had been on the market without anybody taking up the opportunity to acquire it, says that there are challenges to ever making taxable use of that land. But it is a good fit for its current designation. And I believe we should move forward with all deliberate speed in putting it into service in every respect. Having a swimming pool that is accessible to the public, having ball fields that are accessible for sports, and other facilities, relocating the senior station back to that facility. There should also be a cultural center there. There should be an exhibit that highlights the history of Truxton and of Craddock, going back to some remarks I made a couple of weeks ago. That would be ideal. It should not be seen as a Truxton recreation center, but a city recreation center. And we should have transportation that gives access to children across the city to get there and use those facilities. But I'm concerned that the current year, the next fiscal year rather, funding for that relies heavily on CDBG funds, which are in question under the current budget from the federal government. I believe we need to have a contingency plan, and we need to move forward with regular capital improvement funds if the federal funding falls through. We need to deliver on that promise to the children of this city. Portside. So the city of Portsmouth, over more than a decade, put over $6 million of tax money into the Sports Hall of Fame. We finally got out from under that recurring obligation. And what are you doing now? You're looking at going back into something that will not make money for the city. One of your colleagues likes to say that the definition of insanity is doing the same things repetitively and expecting different results. Portside made no money for the city when it was here. There are people in this city who have a nostalgia for that time and place. But the city changed since Portside was opened. We built an Entellus Pavilion. We built a Renaissance Hotel. And over the last few years, we have used North Landing as a community gathering spot. If you put a permanent structure on that site, you lose that. The other thing is, you're building in a flood zone. It is better to have a flexible space that can be used as needed for events that
Thank you, sir.
logically go on the waterfront.
Your time is up.
Thank you very much.
The public hearing on the consideration of the various taxes, fees, and rates associated with the proposed budget, wrong public hearing. This is the public hearing on the CIP, the 5-year capital improvements program, and the public hearing continues. Are there any other speakers who want to speak on the 5-year capital improvements program? Any other speakers? Any other speakers? There are none. I declare the public hearing closed. And this closes out our public hearings.
Yes, sir.
We'll take a 2-minute recess just to stretch. We'll make it 5 minutes. We'll reconvene at 9:05. I'm reconvening the meeting of the City Council. We're now back in order. We're at the part on the agenda of the City Manager's report, and the first item is item 17-185, the consideration of adoption of a certain ordinance. Madam Clerk, would you read the title of the ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance to amend FY 2017 Capital Improvement Program budget by authorizing, one, the transfer of $647,400 from the Woodrow Wilson High School roof replacement project to the West Haven Elementary School roof replacement project, and two, the transfer of $50,000 from the Brighton Elementary School roof replacement project to the Churchland Middle School bleacher project.
In order for this to get before us, do we have a motion to adopt the ordinance?
Second.
We have a motion to adopt, and it's properly second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, the motion carries.
Yes, sir.
This brings us to item 1786, which is the adoption of another ordinance. Madam Clerk, would you read the caption of the ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance authorizing the transfer within the FY 2017 general fund of $2,158,000 to reallocate salary savings to cover anticipated budgetary adjustments needed in certain regular overtime and part-time salary accounts, and to cover costs related to body camera equipment for the police department, street lighting, and landscaping services.
Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. It's properly second. Any discussion? Dr. Whitaker?
Yes, this amount of the transfer, just want to make sure, this is from the previous discussion we had. This is representing vacancy money that's in the budget. Is that correct?
Dr. Patton?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir, and we went through line by line item in the presentation at our public work session last night to show you exactly where.
Yeah, can you give us the figures again for the breakdown of what is going towards each item? You have body camera equipment for the police, street lighting, and landscaping services.
Wait.
Is your mic on?
Let's see. I'm going to ask Mrs. Kelly to come up and speak to it. Mayor, members of council, I have it here, but I don't want to read
Thank you.
each of the items. She will speak
Ladies and
quickly to
gentlemen,
the
this
chart.
is our Chief Financial Officer.
I don't have the chart in front of me.
Okay, Exhibit A for our CMR has the line items. For police overtime is $336,000 increase. For 911 overtime, it's $90,000 increase. For fire overtime, it's a $375,000 increase. For fire part-time salary, it's a $150,000 increase. For fire overtime for EMS, it's $71,000. For finance, part-time salaries, $84,000. For parks, part-time salaries, $102,000. For parks before and after, it's $158,000. For planning, salaries, it's $129,000. For streets and highways, salary, it's $55,000. For the body cameras for the police departments, $290,000. For traffic engineering for street lights, it's $68,000. And for parks landscaping, it's $250,000. There are budgetary savings in various accounts for salary savings of $1.397 million. And in the non-departmental bonus, there was some savings in that account of $761,000 for a total of $2,158,000.
Okay, so these items have not been expended yet, you're just transferring them to these line items?
For the most part, they haven't been expended yet. The camera and the streetlights and the landscaping haven't been expended yet. The overtime and the part-time, they will be needed for the rest of the years.
Now, what will happen if those funds aren't expended?
We would have to cut all overtime and all part-time accounts for parks and police and fire.
No, I mean, what happens if at the end of the year you didn't have to spend as much as has been allocated line item wise?
If we didn't have the expenditures would be less than what we budgeted, and it would roll to fund balance.
Okay. Back to general fund balance?
Yes, this is all general fund.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Are you ready for the question? All in favor, vote yes. Opposed, no. The motion carries on a 6-1 vote. Next item is consideration and adoption of the ordinance. Again, Madam Clerk, would you read the caption of the ordinance?
Yes, sir. An ordinance to amend and reordain Articles 2 and 3 of Chapter 30 of the Code of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia, pertaining to the Portsmouth Supplemental Retirement System and the Fire and Police Retirement System by amending Sections 30-26, 30-100, 30-151, 30-219, and 30-221.
In order for us to put this on the table for our consideration, is there a motion to adopt the ordinance? We have a motion, and it's duly seconded to adopt the ordinance. Are there any comments or questions? Dr. Whitaker.
Yes, can we just get a summary from the city manager as to the impact of these changes?
We may. Dr. Patton.
Yes, Mayor, members of council, I'll have Mrs. Skellick to come up and go through those.
Yes.
Will you come to the lectern,
Go to the
please?
lectern.
For the city's pension system, every 5 years, you have to go to the IRS to get a determination letter whether you're a qualified system or not. And as part of that review, the IRS did declare that our system was qualified, but asked us to make specific changes of how we defined employee definitions. And so those are the changes that have been made to the code based on the IRS report that was given to us about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And so we have till June 30th, mid-June, excuse me, to make those changes to satisfy the IRS determination letter.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions or discussions of the motion? Hearing none, we're ready for the question. All in favor of the motion, vote yes. Opposed, no. And the motion carries 7-0. Brings us to agenda item 17-188, the consideration and adoption of another ordinance. Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of the ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance authorizing the amendment of the overall and fourth quarter FY 2017 Portsmouth Public Schools General Fund operating budgets by transferring $200,000 from the administration classification to the pupil transportation classification and transferring $50,000 from the administration classification to the operation and maintenance classification.
In order to put this before us, is there a motion to adopt?
Move for adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I'll call the shot.
Ladies first.
Ladies first with
Only
the motion. Councilman Moody second the motion. We have a motion duly seconded before us. Any questions? Any discussion? All in favor of the adoption of the ordinance, vote yes. Oppose, no. The motion carries 7-0. This brings us to agenda item 17-189, which is the consideration of a resolution. Would you read the caption, Madam Clerk?
A resolution authorizing the Department of Public Utilities to approve change orders totaling more than 25% of the construction contract with Shaw Construction Corp. For the Goose Creek Transmission Main Replacement Project.
Thank you. In order to get this before us, is there a motion to adopt the resolution? Sir, we have a motion that's been duly seconded to adopt the resolution, and the chair recognizes Dr. Whitaker.
Yes, this may be for the finance director. What is the total amount that this 25% change order represents?
City manager.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, I will ask Mrs. Tremere to come up and speak. And if she has, we have any further questions, Mrs. Tremere is the Director of Public Utilities.
Good evening. What was your question?
It says here that this is to approve change orders totaling more than 25% of the construction contract. So what does that 25% represent in dollar figures?
The first change order was for $233,176. And the second change order that required us to come to council was for a total of approximately $745,439.
Say that again.
$745,439.
So
the total went from approximately 1.4 million to 2.4 million.
So it's how much is the total, the 25%? How much does that represent? Is that the combination of these two amounts you just?
It's over 25% of the original contract.
All right. So now, this contractor submitted a proposal, and I guess it was, I don't know, was he the lowest bid? Was that company the lowest bid?
He was the lowest bidder.
Okay.
This project went out with 20% plans because of the urgency of the project.
Okay.
And as we got to final plans, as noted, the change order is primarily for material costs as part of the project.
Okay, so that change order, it's almost $1 million in change orders.
Right.
Okay, all right.
It's about $979,000.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to get that figure because my concern is that we make quite a bit of issue over when the school system comes in and requests additional funding. But when these contractors come in and now requesting a change order of almost $1 million, and this isn't directed to you, I'm talking to council in general, we don't scrutinize that as much as we scrutinize our school system when they're asking for additional money. And I would dare say that probably no one knows the exactness of these change orders, but we want the exactness from the school system. And these occur in much more frequency and dollar amounts than the school system. So that's why I wanted that figure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion, questions? All in favor of the motion, vote yes. Opposed, no. And the motion carried 7-0, which brings us to agenda item 17-190, consideration of the adoption of a resolution. Madam Clerk, would you read the caption?
Yes, sir. A resolution of the Council of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia, opposing the elimination of federal funding for the Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnership Programs.
Thank you, ma'am. In order for this to be put on the table before us, is there a motion to adopt? Is there a second? Okay, we do have a motion and a second. And we have Dr. Whitaker asking for the floor. Sir, you have the floor.
Yes, I'm just curious. I agree with the letter and being sent out. I'm just curious, why are we just limiting it to the community development block grant opposing that, because in our previous session, we were informed from Ms. Neal of several federal issues that are going to impact us budget-wise. Are we going to respond to those as well? I mean, we heard about cuts from Department of Transportation under the Trump budget, EPA, Department of Homeland Security, Health and Human Services, the Department of Education. Are we going to send a letter just showing our opposition to the overall budget impact that it's going to have on Portsmouth from the Trump proposal?
Thank you, Dr. Whitaker. I'm going to ask the city manager to answer that. I would assume, too, that because federal legislation is considered by a variety of different congressional committees, that's why we take one issue at a time, because it goes to different congressional committees.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor and Vice Mayor, members of council. About 2 weeks ago, I called to your attention that we had received from and through HUD email saying that the funds that we're asking for right now are being considered not only in our city but across the nation for not funding.
Right.
So since we had our hearing tonight and our action and the presentation last night, that is why this resolution has come forward. But in our meeting today, one of the things I was going to report, but this is a perfect time for it. I was going to say we have prepared a letter for the mayor's signature to send to our congressional delegation outlining the city's concern regarding the proposed federal cuts, all of the federal cuts. In addition, we were and will continue to solicit the support of the General Assembly delegation and ask them to reach out to their fellow counterparts. So we will be preparing the letter that covers everything we presented in the federal presentation tonight.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other questions? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, vote yes. Opposed, no. The motion carries. Which brings us to new business. 17-191, boards and commissions. Is any report from the Personnel Committee on that?
No recommendations tonight, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. 17-192, items submitted by council members. Councilman Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to add an item to the agenda.
Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second to add an item to the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, vote yes electronically. Opposed, no. Motion carries. We now are adding the item. Yes, sir.
Mayor, I move to appoint Holt Billy Butt as interim city assessor with all the powers and duties of the assessor and authorize a temporary increase in salary to equal $84,630 effective April 26, 2017 and continuous until such time as the city council acts on the appointed position.
Second.
We have a motion to appoint Billy Butt as the interim assessor. Is that the term?
Yes, sir.
And to serve until the position is filled. Okay, any discussion? All in favor of the motion, vote yes. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Which brings us to, well, first, any other? Which brings, Councilman Moody, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. You may want to explain to the public why we're appointing an interim assessor. I know it was announced a long time ago, but you might want to refresh their memory.
That's a very good idea, and I'll do that. Take this opportunity to tell everyone here in the public that our current assessor is retiring. Today was her last day. She goes on leave for the balance of the month. She'll be sorely missed by City Council and by this organization. She's done an outstanding job. Councilwoman Simmons.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to take this opportunity to give a liaison report of sorts and make notice of some items for public interest. Today, in the Portsmouth Port and Industrial Commission, we had a presentation from the woman in charge of historic resources for the Department of the Navy. She is here working on the historic hammerhead crane that has been at the Norfolk Naval Shipyard in Portsmouth, just out these windows, since the 1930s. You may remember reading a few years ago that the Navy was trying to decide what to do about the hammerhead crane. It hasn't been in operation since 2001. It is not considered mission essential or mission critical anymore. And they are seeking, the Navy, is seeking input on what to do about the crane. So they have asked the City of Portsmouth, and so I am sharing with you that we are seeking public input on the project at the Norfolk Naval Shipyard. They are evaluating alternatives to address the long-term management of the hammerhead crane. Proposed alternatives include dismantling the crane completely or minimally repairing it to preserve it for a period of 20 years as a static display. We would like your input. We are going to share this with the Department of the Navy, and on the city's website, so portsmouthva.gov, we have today put up on our homepage a 2-question survey and a place where you can make comments. If you pull up our website, portsmouthva.gov, there is a blue box on the left side, on the left bottom of the page, and it says Hammerhead Crane Public Input. So I would encourage you to do so we can let the Navy know how we feel about this iconic structure on our downtown waterfront. In addition to that, I would like to let the public know that if you missed the Mayor Rowe's State of the City luncheon earlier this week, it is now airing on PCTV, Cox Channel 48, and FiOS Channel 39 at 10 a.m. and 9:30 p.m. This Wednesday and Friday. So I would encourage you to watch a very inspiring presentation from Mayor Rowe, one of the first sellout State of the City address in the history of these Chamber of Commerce events in the city. Over 600 people attended the event, and it was fabulous, if I say so myself. I'll also tell you that this Saturday, the 29th, is Cause for Pause, supporting the our Humane Society at the North Landing Grass, which used to be Portside, which will be Portside again next year. And also to let you know that coming in your mailbox at your house is the May through August edition of Community Concern Connections about activities going on in the city, particularly with Parks and Recreation. And that's it.
Thank you. Councilman Moody, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. There was another state address that, Mayor, you attended, Vice Mayor Cherry, Councilwoman Simmons, and myself this week, and that was the State of the Ports. And it was announced John Reinhardt, who's the Executive Director or CEO of the Virginia Port Authority, gave an address and indicated that this port has surpassed New York and New Jersey in container volume. And on May the 8th, the largest ship ever to visit East Coast Port, as the Costco ship, it can carry over 13,000 containers. Mr. Reinhardt said if those containers were stretched down the road, they would reach from Portsmouth to Emporia, which is about 70 miles, I believe, which is phenomenal. He also shared with us that the port's averaging over 220,000 containers a month, which is all-time records. So the health of the port in Portsmouth is excellent. In fact, we'll be going out to view the ship, I think May the 8th. So that's exciting. Certainly puts Portsmouth on the map. So wanted to share that, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Any others? This brings us to 1793, report on pending items. City Manager.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, we had at the April 11th meeting some citizens from the Westbury area to come and speak. Our police department is working with the citizens, and they have gone out and visited and addressing their issues.
Thank you. Which brings us to item 17194. And Madam Clerk, would you explain the council rules on speaking, the number of times a person can speak?
Ladies and gentlemen, persons may sign up to speak either on one or more business agenda items or as a non-agenda speaker, but not both. At the appointed time, this restriction will be enforced as needed, and each speaker will still have a maximum speaking time of 5 minutes. And this comes from the City Council's request by citizens to address council rule from your rules and procedures.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? All right, well, this completes our agenda. No further business. We are now adjourned.